everyone, this is Waywolf here. So it's finally here. This is my Resident Evil tier list. Sorry for the long wait. I've had a few issues and a few um personal problems, but now it's finally here and let's get into it. So I'm gonna end with the main series on this list, and start with the side games basically. I think it just makes more sense that way to me, at least. So let's see. All right, so let's start with Resident Evil Gaiden. This game is quite infamous for people who know about it, and it's probably one of the worst Resident Evil game I've ever played. I can't think of a single Resident Evil game that surpasses this. So it's definitely going in F tier. I mean, I played it just for like what? I don't forget the amount of time I played it for, but it was enough. Trust me, it was enough. I forgot how long ago it's been since I played it, but I definitely remember how bad it was. Alright, so let's see, what else do we got? Resident Evil 3 The Mercenaries. Actually, I quite enjoyed this one. It wasn't great, but it was actually, it just reminded me of Resident Evil 5, but on handheld. But it still wasn't as good as Resident Evil 5, and it still had quite a few flaws. I'm debating if I want to put this in C or D. For now, I think, you know what, I'm just gonna put this in. I'm gonna put this in D. Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I liked it, but it was to me, it was just average. Maybe just a little below average. Alright, what next game we got here? Umbrella Corps. Actually, this is one of the few multiplayer games I was looking forward to when it was first announced. And this game was just a complete and utter disappointment. It's up there with Gaiden as far as worst Resident Evil games. So far, they have not come up with one good single multiplayer Resident Evil game that I could think of. Well, I guess you can count Outbreaks, not quite, right? But yeah, it's just one of those games that it's so forgettable, it's so frustrating to play, and it kills all the joy of gaming just playing it. So F tier, hands down. All right, let's see what else we got here. Operation Raccoon City, another one that I was looking forward to, and same thing again. They just didn't get it right. It was just bad. A lot of bugs when it was released. For me. I crashed like over a dozen times for me, and it was just unplayable. So it's definitely F tier. I mean, when they released it, it was such a bad state, and it was just like same thing with Umbrella Corps. It was just not fun to play. It was just a broken mess. So it's just got to go to F tier. Alright. Now let's go to... what else? I thought we had one more multiplayer game that was on here. Resistance. Resident Evil Resistance. This game, so far, is the newest multiplayer game and from Resident Evil series. And this game, like I said, another disappointment. But I'll give it credit where credit is due. This is not saying much, but it is a little bit better than what has been released before, but not by much. So I'm gonna put this in E tier, but that's not really much of a compliment when you got considering what's at the bottom. So, but for what it was, I enjoyed like maybe an hour of it, and that was really about it. The rest, it was just a struggle to enjoy the game and have fun, and it just didn't work for me. And yeah, it was just not fun to play. I mean, they have such an interesting, Resident Evil has such an interesting lore and world. You think those make it fun to play, but it isn't. It's just dull and boring. All right, what else? Okay, I think that's it for the multiplayer that I see. Yeah, and Reverse has not been out yet, so I can't rate that yet. I'm not sure when this is coming out, but I hope maybe the end of this year. But as far as I know, I'm not sure on the release date on this, so that's just going to stay where it's at. The Outbreak series. I actually remember playing this game back on the PS2 era, and I enjoyed them. They were, and this was when online gaming was new. So it was still new. It was still new for online gaming. So you can definitely see there were so many flaws with that. They just didn't have the right technology at the time. But for what it was at the time, it was fun. So I'm gonna put this. I'm gonna put C and or for the first outbreak and the second outbreak, and C. Both decent games. Nothing too great, but nothing too bad either. Okay. What else we got? Let's see. The Resident Evil Survivor series. This was their, for I can remember, this is their first attempt at first person. And this was also a light gun game. And it's kind of a guilty pleasure because I did like little parts of the game, but it's one of those games that it's so bad that some parts are enjoyable, but overall it's still a bad game. No question about that. But I did enjoy one playthrough of it. So there's that at least. So I'm just gonna put this in E. Resident Evil Survivor 2. That was a better game, definitely a better game than the first one, but still, it wasn't good. It was just, it's you play the game and you just think, nothing too great about it. You don't want to play it again. But it is better than Survivor, the first one, graphically and gameplay wise. So I'm gonna put this one in D category. All right, and let's see. Now let's go to the the Chronicles series. So we'll start with Resident Evil Umbrella Chronicles. These are actually pretty good. The Chronicles series is actually really good light gun games. If you like any kind of light gun games, they're actually pretty enjoyable and pretty fun. So I'm gonna put the Umbrella Chronicles in the C category, and then for Dark Side Chronicles, I'm gonna put this in the B category. I think the Dark Side Chronicles just improved everything about was in Umbrella Chronicles. I mean, it just felt better, it played better, and it looked better. And I did multiple playthroughs of Dark Side Chronicles, and I actually enjoyed it. So, and I actually did enjoy I just didn't enjoy the lore of the story. So yeah, I have to give this a B. All right, Dead Aim. This was actually Resident Evil game on the PS2 that took place on a cruise ship, and it had horrible voice acting, and like the others before it was also a light gun game as well, but also went to third person too when you weren't using your gun. So it was an interesting concept. I think that it was still executed not right. I mean, I enjoyed it. It's like one of those guilty pleasure games I enjoyed. So it's hard for me to rate this because it's definitely not the worst game in the series, and I did enjoy it. So I'm not just sure what I want to put this. Do I want to put this in D or do I want to put this in C? I'm kind of conflicted because it does have horrible voice acting, but I enjoyed it still. I mean, it wasn't too bad. So I'm gonna put this in C. Yeah, that sounds about right for me. So, but the game, if I remember correctly, the game was really short too. But it's been a while since I played it. But from what I remember, it was a fun time. All right. What else am I missing from side games? Deadly Silence. Didn't really care for this game much at all. I remember playing it, but I hardly remember it. But from what I remember, it was awful. So I'm just gonna put this in E. Not the worst, but definitely nowhere near as the best. Okay, and then the Revelation series. I really enjoyed Resident Evil Revelations. This came at a time when the infamous Resident Evil 6 came out, and a lot of people, including myself, were really disappointed by that game. And we want to go back to the tour route, and this game did that. And this was also on a cruise ship, but did it 5 times better than Dead Aim did. And for the most part, I enjoyed the story. There's one character in there particularly I hated, Actually, make that 3. Um, make that 3 characters I didn't like. But I enjoyed this. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the story still overall, and the gameplay was fun, and the horror was back. So that's a big plus. So I just love the setting, and I love the design of the cruise ship in this game. So for me, this is definitely. I'm gonna probably put this in A. I really enjoyed it. Alright, now for Revelations 2. Now, when Revelations 2 came out, they put this in an episodic format. And it released it by episodes, which I'm not really a fan of the games that do that. But I enjoyed the game, not as much as Revelations 1, but I'm so glad they brought Barry back. He hasn't been seen since Resident Evil 3. The original, anyway. And it was just good to actually finally play as him and actually hear about him after so long of not hearing anything about Barry. So, and to those who don't know who Barry is, he was from the first Resident Evil game. The one with the infamous line of the Jill sandwich. So, Revelations 2, well, not as good as the first one. Because it was parts of it were leading towards more action oriented and more away from the horror the first one had. So I don't like that. So I'm gonna put this in B. Still a great game, but not as good as the first. Okay, and I think that is all of the side games out there. Yeah, that's all of them. So now on to the main series. First, we're gonna start with Resident Evil 0. I have a love-hate relationship with this game. I love the graphics. I love the settings, especially the train. But I hated the zap system. The zap system is how you manage your inventory in this game. There's no inventory box in this game at all whatsoever. And it just... the way it's implemented on this game is just... it's really bad. To me, it's really bad. And it makes everything frustrating. And when you don't have enough items, you just drop it wherever you are. You can't go back to an item box and get stuff or drop stuff that you're over. When you have too much stuff in your inventory, you just drop it wherever it is. And there's certain parts of the game where if you drop it on the if you drop it on the train, well, you won't be able to get that back later at all. So the zap system just wasn't really working for me. And you also switch between characters too on the fly. Some of it was good, but I did not like that system at all for this game. And I didn't really care for the character Billy. To me, he's just really forgettable. So, but I do enjoy the game, and I love the setting. But the Zappa system really killed it for me. So I'm gonna put this one. Part of me really wants to put this in B because it is a good game. But that zapping system really ruins the experience for me. So I'm going to put this in C. I would put that in D, but I think it would be disservice to actually do that for that kind of game. Because of the high quality it is as well. Alright. Now we go on to Resident Evil Director's Cut. This is the original Resident Evil game that came back on PlayStation 1. And I was just a little kid when I first got my hands on this. And... it scared me, especially the dog part through the window. That always got me. So this game had the most cheesy voice acting, most cheesy lines, but I love it. I love it for it. I mean, I just love some of the lines they say. Like I just mentioned earlier, the Jill sandwich that Barry mentioned, the Master of Unlocking. Just some cheesy, campy. She's like a cheesy, campy horror film, especially when they had the real life actors in there and part of the cutscenes. It just made it even more campier. But I actually loved it for that because it was so campy. But some people don't like that, but I actually thought it was part of its charm. But so I'm gonna put this in B because I actually enjoyed it. Graphically, it does not hold up well at all. It's actually really pretty horrible looking now. It has not aged well at all. But that campiness and those cheesy lines and those voice acting, they shouldn't get me, but they get me. So that's gonna go in B. Now for the Resident Evil remake. This probably has to be one of the best video game remakes I've ever played. They did everything they were supposed to do. They kept true to the original game, but they didn't cut anything out. But they also added stuff to it and added more lore to it, more locations and more lore. They actually added to the content, and this was a huge graphical upgrade from the original Resident Evil. So they just did, and the voice acting is much better than the original. There's none of that campiness or none of those cheesy. Well, actually, I think there was one cheesy line in there, if I remember correctly, but still, it was a big improvement overall. And it's just, I don't think any remake can get that, because they just did everything right. I can't think of one single thing they did wrong with this remake. I really can't. I'm trying to think right now, and I just cannot think of one single thing they did wrong. So this has to, for me, this goes in SS tier. It's perfection. This is how you do a remake. Alright, so let's go on to Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 was one of my favorite games growing up. I did so many playthroughs and speedruns in that game. I lost track, honestly. It's just one of those games that improved over the original in every single way. The music, better voice acting, better setting. I love the Raccoon Police Department. That is probably my favorite setting in the Resident Evil series. They just did it so brilliantly. And I love the multiple playthroughs, the A and B scenario, which they haven't done again, unfortunately, and I wish they did. But if you play one game through as Leon, you get to play a second playthrough through Claire, but through different scenarios, little different locations, different items, and I love that. To me, Resident Evil 2 is definitely SS tier. Perfection sequel. This is how you do a sequel. All right. Then we got the Resident Evil 2 remake. Another example of how to do remake right. I love this game. I did the exact same thing with this game I did with the original. I went through multiple playthroughs, did multiple speedruns, and I loved it. I loved the new camera angle. It just fits perfectly with it. I love how Mr. X, instead of just defeating him once in a while and you don't hear back from him for a while, he actually chases you through the police department. And I love that, especially the heavy stomping. It just creeps you out every time when you're in the police department. And they did it so beautifully. Usually I don't like chasing enemies in games, but this one I loved. I mean, they just did it right. And if they had any one complaint, honestly, maybe this is a nitpick, but it's still a complaint. I wish there was more time or interaction between Leon and Claire. Because there seemed to be more in the original. And also, this is, the scenarios are pretty much feel more the same in this one compared to the original Resident Evil 2. There are some differences, but in the original Resident Evil 2, it was more profound there. Here it's just little stuff. But overall, the remake for Resident Evil 2 was incredible. It's got the music down, it's got the setting down, it's got the gameplay down, the graphics are incredible. I love this game to pieces. So this for me goes in SS tier. Alright, now we go to the Resident Evil 3 Nemesis for the PlayStation 1, the original Resident Evil 3. This came out right before, I think 1999, I believe. And I was really looking forward to it, especially after playing 2. And I enjoyed the game. Not as good as 2, but I enjoyed Nemesis. He was a very interesting villain to me. And I loved how he chased you and he would just pop out of nowhere. And you would have to defeat him. And they give you options at certain points of the game. They're called live scenes, where you have to choose one option like in a very fast amount of time. So I love that, which unfortunately they took away in the remake. But I loved going downtown Raccoon City. I loved going to all the locations in Nemesis. Um, yeah, it was a great game. I really enjoyed it. But like I said, it's not as good as a 2. But I'm gonna put this. I want to probably put this in S or A category. I think I'm gonna put this. I'm trying to think really carefully. I'm gonna put this in S. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but not as much as the others. Alright, so now we're on to the Resident Evil 3 remake. Before I get started, just want to let you know that I think Resident Evil 3 is a great game. But it's not a fantastic game. It's not amazing like and a remake is supposed to make make everything better. It's supposed to be better than the original. And this game did not do that. Because they cut out material for this game. Especially the clock tower, which was a huge setting in the original Resident Evil 3. They cut that out. And I was so dumbfounded when I was playing through the game that I found out they just cut that segment out completely. And I don't know, and I think it was due to timing issues, but still, when you do a remake, you shouldn't cut out a big segment like that. That segment was at least an hour long, so I'm still amazed why they did that. But yeah, and they also cut out little parts too. They cut out the zoo, or not the sorry, they cut out Central Park, and they cut off more of the downtown Raccoon City. It was so dumbfounded that they had so little of Raccoon downtown. The city downtown was just one little area, and it was so much smaller in this remake than compared to the original. And Nemesis, he was much better than the original because he was more, except for just one small part of the game, and it was near the beginning when you're in the downtown area in Raccoon City, where there's scripted events, and I hated that because I wanted him to act more the original or Mr. X, and he didn't. It was just mostly just scripted events and boss battles, except for that small part in Raccoon City where he does chase you around. But it's like I said, it's only a very small part, and he doesn't do it again. So to me, this game was a disappointment. It's still a good game, but overall, I have to call it out for what it is. This is definitely the original Resident Evil 3 was definitely better. So I'm gonna put this in B category. Alright, now we get to the big mama, Resident Evil 4. This game is regarded as one of the best Resident Evil games in the series to this day. I put more hours and more playthroughs in this game than not only in the Resident Evil series, but probably any other game I can think of. This game did everything right for me. They mixed the action and horror segments perfectly. The setting was great. The weapon system and the inventory system was great. The bosses were fun. And I love the economy system. I love the voice acting. They did everything right. I mean, this is the only game that mixed the action and the horror perfectly. Because this is when they started to put more action to the Resident Evil series, and in this game they did it perfectly for me. And I just enjoyed it. The castle setting in this game is probably one of my favorite settings in the game. I love Salazar too. He's probably one of my favorite villains in the series. But this to me is SS tier, no doubt. Always, and I'm hoping in the remake they don't cut anything out. They did like they do with the original Resident Evil. They add more stuff in and more lore. Don't cut anything out. That's when you do a remake, you should not cut out big segments like you did for 3. I'm really hoping the best for Resident Evil 4 remake, and I hope it does well. So we'll see. All right, now we get to Resident Evil 5. Oh yes, the game where Chris punches a boulder. I don't think I'll ever forget that. uh, I just, I don't. Yeah, it's just not many games that can make fun of that. Um, but yeah, this game, this was the good game. But co-op is where it really shines with this game. This was probably one of the best co-op games there is out there. Some people don't like it, and I can understand why. But personally, for co-op, for me, I enjoyed it. But it wasn't good as 4, nor or and for solo play, it's just okay. It's nothing great. It's just to me on solo play, it's just it's not bad. But on co-op, that's where you should play the Resident Evil 5 in co-op. That's where it really shines. So overall, if I have to give this game a score, it's going to be put in the A category. Still a good game, but I played the game solo twice, and played it co-op like 4 times. And co-op is definitely the way to go if you ever play this game. But like I said, even playing solo, it's still not a bad game. It's just the AI for the character could be a lot better. And that's putting it nicely. So yeah. So Shiva, that's the character of the character. Her AI is it's not good. It's so I that's one of the reasons I recommend for co-op. All right. Oh, and excuse me, we did skip Code Veronica, so I'm gonna go back into this. Code Veronica X, which originally came out for the PlayStation 2. This was a great game. I enjoyed it. I loved the when you switch between Claire, and then you switch to Chris later on. And I love the bosses. I love the music. I don't love it as much as the others, like in S tier and SS tier, but I still think it's a great game, and I would still love to see a remake on this game. So I'm gonna put this. I put this in A category. I enjoyed it. All right, now let's go to the black sheep of the series, Resident Evil 6. This game is widely hated. I know all my friends who played this game did not like it. They only played it once, and they said that was enough. And there are some good parts for 6. I can attest to that. I played the game like 4 times through, all the scenarios. They had a total of 4 scenarios, 3 of them at first, which you unlock the 4th by playing all 3 of them. And I have to say, it's too much. They were trying to do too much and trying to, satisfy everyone. And you can never ever satisfy everyone, no matter how hard you try. It's just not going to happen. And that's what they're trying to do here, and it failed bad. It's just, I love the characters in this game. I did love, I did love some parts of the game. I did, but it felt like a bad Michael Bay movie. There was too many explosions, too many action scenes, way too many QuickTime events. It just ruined the experience for me. It didn't feel like a survival horror game. Even Leon's campaign, which was supposed to be survival horror, it didn't really. I mean, there were certain parts it did a little bit, but overall, it just didn't feel like it. It felt like I was just playing an action game. And that's what you don't want it for Resident Evil series. Resident Evil is not an action game; it's a survival horror game. So they just put way too much into this game, and it blew up in their face. So I'm gonna probably put 6 because it does have some redeemable qualities. So I'm gonna probably put this in D category. But overall, it's the worst in the main series. Okay, now let's go to Resident Evil 7. I really enjoyed 7. I was really concerned when they were going with first-person mode with this game. But once I played it, all my doubts about the game flew out the window. It was so good, and it was scary, just like what I wanted. And the Baker family was great. There were great villains, disgusting villains too. Um, and I love the Louisiana swamp setting, and it just fit so well with the game. At first, I didn't think I would like the villain because the villain was a child, and I hate those cliche child villains. I'm not a fan of evil childs, but in this one it fit and it explained why, and so I can forgive it for that, and I actually enjoyed it. So this game is really good. It's definitely one of my favorite Resident Evil games, and I really enjoyed the first person mode. I really did. So I'm gonna put this in S category. Really good game. Alright, now to the most recent and latest game in the series, Village. Alright, Village is a really ambitious project, ambitious game. This is probably, it has one of my favorite settings in the Resident Evil series, easily. I just love the castle, the village itself, the snowy landscapes. I just love the setting so much in this game. I enjoyed the story too. The story in the game and lore, I enjoyed it. I do have some issues with this game, especially towards when you get to the later half of the game. It was gearing more towards that action, and it's like, don't do that. You're reminding me of Resident Evil 6 a little bit when you start doing that. It was because there was a certain part where you fought a boss, and in a tank kind of mech, and I was like, this is not Resident Evil. It was fun, but it was a little too much. But overall, I really enjoyed the game. I love the bosses. I love the inventory system that came back from the fourth game, because you see a lot of influence from the fourth game in this game. It's a mix between Resident Evil 4 and Resident Evil 7, which I think is a brilliant combination. And then you got the famous Lady D, and she's been on the internet and been like an icon. So, and the only thing that's disappointing is she's not in this game very long, which I was really bummed about. I actually wanted her to be the main villain, honestly. I honestly think she would make a better main villain for this game if she was. Because I do have some gripes about the game itself with the main villain, and also Chris. I love Chris's new look, but I don't like some of the actions he took in this game. It's like, why did you do that? But overall, I really enjoyed this game. It has very few faults with it, but if I had to choose between Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village, it's gonna be really hard because 7 was more scary to me. That's what Resident Evil should be. The Village, to me had better gameplay and better setting. But so it's really hard to say. I don't know, honestly. But I'm gonna put Village right next to 7 because I really don't know. Part of me likes 7 a little bit better. But it's for me. It's hard to tell. It's hard to say. But I really enjoyed Village. It's a great game, and I'm kind of excited where to take the series next. Are we going to see another first-person game in Resident Evil 9 like they did with Village? We'll see. I'd love to see Leon back and Claire back. It's been a while since we've seen them, so I think I want to see both of them back in the same game. But yeah, it's hard to say where the series goes next. But near the end of the game, it's definitely hinting who you're going to be playing as. But like I said, it's way too early to tell, and they might go with third person, they might go with first person. But to me, either way, I don't care, honestly. I definitely want to see them go back to third person eventually, but I wouldn't mind another first person game in Resident Evil series. So anyway, that's my Resident Evil tier list. So I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you have a great week. So everyone out there, take care, and this is Wade Wolf signing off.